Randy, Sergeant Shannon Barnett wasn't there when Officer Muhammad Noor fired the shot, but prosecutors accuse her of not doing her job that night and for throwing the idea into the investigation that Justine Rushtek-Damond slapped the squad car leading to the shooting. According to MPD policy, Barnett was supposed to ask Muhammad Noor and his partner, Officer Matthew Harity, public safety questions, including the direction the shot was fired, whether there were any firearms at the scene, and whether the person shot was committing a crime. She admitted she didn't ask any of those questions. And she revealed, apparently for the first time, that she's talked about the shooting with Harity multiple times since the night of the shooting and hasn't documented it or told anybody about it. Also revealed, she told investigators about her conversation that night with Noor. Quote, "He asked me several times, 'Sarge, is she going to be okay?' I said, 'I'm not going to be worried about that right now. I'm going to be worried about you.'" Now, there was also compelling testimony about one of Sergeant Barnett's body camera videos, and in it, we can see Officer Muhammad Noor lift both hands and point toward the driver's window of the squad car that he's sitting in. Prosecutors say that he's demonstrating how he carried out the shooting, but Sergeant Barnett disputes that. Testimony continues in the morning. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Lou. And you can follow the latest developments from the Noor trial on KARE11.com and on our social media pages.